Hey guys, what is up? Niad here with Film Comics Explained. I had to take a few days off from recording as I've been recovering from a sinus infection. Still not 100%, so I apologize if I sound congested. We are back with the 5th chapter into our run of 28 Days Later, London Calling. When we left, a group of journalists led by Selena had made their way into the infected zone, only to be hunted down by both the zombies and the military attempting to cover it up. A fighter jet eventually shot their boat to shreds, killing every member of their group except for Clint, Selena, and Derek, who was now blinded by the attack. The three of them swam to shore and are now in Scotland. We head back to about a week after infection. What I love is that this gives us a fresh perspective and glimpse into how the rest of the world was reacting to what was happening in London. We pick back up to find Clint, who was lying in bed. We can see some sleeping pills and sedatives by his phone, which abruptly starts to ring. Clint's brother, Jimmy, asks how long he's been back, and Clint tells him it's been 2 days. He tells Jimmy that he would love to talk but hasn't been sleeping well since coming back from Baghdad. After 6 months of reporting, his editor had essentially given him 2 weeks vacation, and he intends to sleep for its duration. He asks him to tell their parents that he says hi before hanging up. His phone keeps ringing every few hours. Clint finally answers it and yells out, asking not to be disturbed, only to find out that his editor is calling. And Clint says that he gave him 2 weeks off and that the war in Iraq wasn't going anywhere, before telling him to find another reporter. Elliot tells him to turn his TV on. When Clint asks why, Elliot simply tells him that he is going to want to see this. Clint turns the news on to show a broadcast from London. A reporter is standing on a pole in an attempt to get to higher ground, while the infection can be seen at work around her. People are frantically trying to run away from them, but there is infected and blood everywhere. Elliot tells Clint that it is a virus that hit London a little over a week ago. They are fortunate it's not airborne, but it does seem to be spreading like wildfire. Clint asks him what the incubation period was while packing his things. Elliot tells him that it is 20 seconds. Clint asks if he means 20 days, and Elliot simply says, "No, Clint, seconds." We see the reporter heading out of his hotel room as he tells his editor he will be at JFK within the hour. He also asks him to organize 2 tickets, one for him and Derek. His editor tries to warn him that Derek was not yet ready since being taken hostage, but Clint insists that he needs to get back on the horse. We can see Derek at a bar. Clint's voice off panel asks the bartender to stop serving him drinks, before we see him coming up behind Derek and telling him that duty calls. Derek tells him that the only place he has to be is right here. Clint then asks him what Carl would think. This is clearly agitated Derek, as Carl was one of his many friends that were executed in front of him. Clint tells him to be angry, to be sad, to be drunk, so long as he isn't idle. He pays for his drinks before telling Derek that they are on their way to London. They arrive at the airport to find it is in a frenzy. The lady behind the counter informs Clint that all flights to London's largest airport, Heathrow, were cancelled. He asks about the other airports, and she tells him that the closest one she can get him to is Stansted. Clint then receives a call from his editor, who asks if they are on the plane yet, and he replies by telling him that the tickets he had just bought for them for London had gone bust. He informs him that they have shut down the city, as we see a woman sneezing near them. A man behind her yells at everybody to move and get out of his way, while another points at her and says that she is infected. Elliot tells Clint to get on the plane now, as their source at Metro has said that they were thinking about cancelling all international flights in and out of JFK. A soldier approaches Derek and tells him that he can't film here, and Derek flips out, yelling at him to get his hands out of his business. The soldier then aims his rifle at Derek before telling him to put the camera down. Derek asks if he is actually going to shoot him before saying that the First Amendment and the Constitution will see his ass in court. We see Clint trying to defuse the situation, but the panic and alarm is growing within the terminal. Derek keeps antagonizing him, saying that he isn't a raghead, and one of the soldiers fires a warning shot in the air to get control of the situation, which instead causes a stampede. Once they've made some distance, Clint asks what happened back there, referring to Derek's outburst, and Derek simply asks if they can get on the plane before being trampled to death. Once they are seated, Derek asks the flight attendant for a set of those tiny bottles of alcohol for him and his friend. She turns around with a disapproving look and tells him that they are all ready for a drink after what had just happened in the terminal, but insists that she must get people settled first. Clint tells him that he doesn't want to drink, and Derek explains that they are not for Clint, but for him. Clint is seeing the signs of a broken man, and asks if Derek is in on this, as this is a huge story, and they are already late. Clint had thought that he would be able to shrug it off, but is concerned about this new racist attitude of Derek's. Clint tells him that he's never had a problem with Arabs before. Derek replies by saying things changed after one of them betrayed him to watch his friends get beheaded. Clint tells him that he's had enough of that crap. He says that he is here because he is his friend and also the best photojournalist that he knows, but insists that if he's going to behave like a cretin, he should find something else to do. There is a pause in the air before Derek admits that he can't stop seeing or hearing it replay over in his mind. Clint tells him that he understands, but lets him know that they're about to see a whole lot worse. A few hours later, Clint is talking to a passenger on board. He thanks him before asking if he could bother him with more questions later. The doctor replies by saying not at all, as it is a long flight. Clint sits back down and tells Derek that half the plane is filled with doctors from the Center for Disease and Control. Derek tells him that would explain why there were 3 air marshals on board. He lifts his eye mask and says that he knows how to spot a guy with a gun. Derek asks what the doctors had told him, and Clint explains that most of them wouldn't talk, and the ones that would weren't saying much, other than that the infection most likely originated in a London lab. Derek asks if terrorism may have been involved, and Clint explains that there weren't any terrorists with that kind of know-how. He then tells him that this mess was homegrown, which is a good estimated guess. A few hours into the flight, they receive a message from their captain on the PA systems. He informs the passengers that they have been instructed to redirect the flight to Frankfurt. He apologizes for the inconvenience before saying he will update them with connecting information once they know more. Derek asks Clint what that could mean, and Clint replies by saying it means the impossible, that they're shutting down the whole island. A few weeks have passed, and we arrive in Berck, France, to find Clint and Derek recording footage of a farmer shooting seagulls. After they have finished up, Clint suggests that they leave as they don't want to be late. He tells Derek that they didn't spend a month fighting for French work visas just to watch farmers cull the seagulls. They are obviously trying to make it as close as they can to London, legally, without attracting attention. The two meet up with a Major Saunders outside a cafe. We get the understanding that Saunders, like the captain, is an old friend of Clint's. After the pleasantries, he tells them that he is surprised to see them here, as he thought that they would have been stuck in New York. Clint explains that they got out right before the city went black. It is also revealed that 1,000 people had been trampled to death due to the fear and panic induced by the woman sneezing at the airport. We get an understanding that it is this paranoia that has caused the locals to cull the seagulls for fear of infection spreading. The Major asks them if they are sure they want to do this, and Clint says that he is damn sure, as a whole country had just up and died, and no one is being held responsible. Saunders tells them no cameras, recorders, or notepads, and suggests that they sort out their wills before they go. He tells them that the main island is still too hot, which is why they have set up a black site to do research on the island of White, which is a few kilometers off the coast of the mainland. He goes on to say that they will be using it as a staging area when they repatriate London. Clint asks if this means that the US is effectively invading England. Saunders says that that is incorrect, and that a US-led NATO force is going to make London safe for its people again. Clint asks if that is a good idea, and the Major tells him that if it was up to him, he'd burn every square inch of the island and then sink it into the sea. Clint then questions whether the British military is okay with foreign soldiers on their soil, and Saunders simply asks to what military he is referring to. The last that they had heard of any soldiers on the mainland was that lot that were holed up in Manchester with Selina and the other survivors. He explains that there were only 3 civilian survivors before telling them to put on their helmets. After they get out of the helicopter, he insists that they stay close and tells them not to talk to anybody. They get inside and he explains that this place is the research facility, before saying that they did say they wanted to see the infection close up. Clint asks if that man tied to the gurney was infected. Saunders tells them that he wasn't yet, and that his name was Ahmed Karzai, a member of a terrorist faction that has been captured by the CIA. He turns to Derek and asks if this was the same faction that kidnapped Derek and his friends. Derek hesitantly says yes. Clint is confused and asks for a confirmation that they are actually doing experiments on a prisoner, and Saunders confirms this. Clint then asks what he meant before when he said that the man wasn't infected. Saunders corrects him and says that he had actually said, "Not yet." We can see 2 syringes filled with the blood of someone infected with the rage virus next to the gurney. The prisoner is saying some prayers as he is injected with the infection. We can see his eyes turning red almost immediately before he begins to shake violently. Clint is in shock and asks what they are doing here. Saunders tells him to keep watching as the guy continues to shake and scream. After a few more seconds, the lab tech turns around and apologizes to the Major and tells him that the sample was ineffective. Clint asks what sample he is referring to, and Saunders explains that they were looking for a cure. At that moment, the prisoner grabs the lab coat of the technician. The tech instinctively moves back to get away from his grip and ends up knocking the samples to the ground and accidentally injecting himself. He asks the Major to get inside and kill him quickly as they only have a few seconds. Saunders enters and reaches for his gun, and when he realizes he doesn't have it, he grabs a nearby gas canister and bludgeons the tech over the head. He turns back to Clint and Derek and tells them to get back to the chopper. He looks at Clint and tells them that they are evil before insisting that he doesn't ask him for any more favors. We can see the two at a bar a few hours later. Derek tells Clint that he doesn't think telling this story is such a good idea. Clint replies by saying that people deserve to know the truth about what they are doing in their name. Derek tells him that looking for a cure isn't evil. Clint then asks him if he is honestly happy with what they saw in there and that they were using people as guinea pigs. Derek admits that he wasn't, but is also honest about the fact that he is biased about the situation. Clint brings up a valuable point when he says that they both know what repatriating London meant. They were going to essentially sweep it under the rug with no accountability, which meant that eventually, it will happen again. They both agree that London is where they will find the answers. Derek asks him how they were going to get there without being able to fly, and Clint simply tells him not to worry and that he had a plan. We then see the cover of the newspaper below their drinks, which featured the 3 survivors. And that is the end of chapter 5 to 28 days later. I really hope you guys are loving the story. Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. I'm Nihat with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.